me. And actually, thank you very much as well. I always forget to record our session. So, Jeremy, thank you so much. And as you can see, Jeremy is a very practiced at this. He's done many of these sessions in the past, and we're so happy to have him joining us here to speak to this topic of Nail LinkedIn networking culture for our international students and our international alumni. So again, welcome from me. I think most of you know me, but again, Audra Bonney from the Pulsifer Career Development Center. I work formally in the graduate career side, but I am the international student specialist for all international students at Bentley. So as Jeremy said, I have the wonderful privilege of organizing programming for all of you. And I am, again, so happy that he's here with us today to share with us the best ways to maximize your LinkedIn profile and to use LinkedIn most effectively when it comes to, job search, internship, career success. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what Jeremy has to say, and I know you are too. Before I actually hand it off to him, I did want to say in terms of housekeeping, Jeremy talked about utilizing the chat. So feel free to utilize the chat with comments that you'd like to make and love, as he had said, reactions that you have. At the same time, if you do have questions, we do encourage you to put them in the Q&A. The Q&A is available for you as a function throughout the session. We will do our best to address them all. We are meant not to be a lecture today. Jeremy is very good at interactive, wants to have the most robust discussion. So we definitely encourage, again, Q&A, chat, even raise your hand, and we will certainly have you the ability to ask your own questions and engage in the conversation. So how does that sound, Jeremy?
Let's do it. I love it.
Okay, let's do it. So Jeremy, back to you.
Okay, thank you so much, Audra. And thanks to everyone who's introducing themselves in the chat. That is a great way to start today's session. And as Audra mentioned, this is all about giving you all the tools you need to be super successful on LinkedIn and beyond. So just one more time real quick here. I want to give another shout out to Audra and her colleague, Janet, the masterminds behind all of these sessions. So please thank them either in the chat, maybe your favorite emoji, or over email, or even on LinkedIn, whatever your preferred format is. And that being said, let me dive in and tell you a little bit about your speaker today. So like I was getting my business degree about 10 years ago. And I have to tell you that if you have any doubts about, hey, is business school the right place for me? Just know it's this incredible career accelerator. I came into business school as a former kindergarten teacher, and I walked out with all these amazing opportunities, all thanks to that education I got. And the one place that really rocked my world career-wise was getting a chance to work at LinkedIn right after graduation. And that's because even as a student, I have to admit, I was pretty naive when it came to all things career. I wasn't sure what a recruiter was or a hiring manager or how the process worked behind the scenes. And then working at LinkedIn was kind of like shining a flashlight into the black box of the hiring process. For the first time, I really got it. This is how it all happens behind the scenes. And so I've been on a mission for the last half a decade to share those same secrets with students around the world, and most importantly, to help them land jobs they're excited about. So whether you're excited about analytics like Monica, or you're interested in just general business like Annie, you are in the right place because LinkedIn is a tool that's going to empower you to get access to those dreams. I'm going to focus on 4 things today that I think are the most important things for any student, and especially an international student, to know if you're looking for a job in the US. And the first one is just the key foundation, which is how does hiring work in the US? And here's the honest truth. Even your American-born case. Okay, there we go. Wonderful. And so we're going to be talking all about what's happening behind the scenes at every top American employer you might want to apply to. Of course, sponsorship is a huge piece of it. So we're talking about not just how to discover sponsorship opportunities in general, but specifically tied to your university. We're going to be talking about standing out in a really crowded field. Like, I get it. It's tough for any student to break into the desired field, but especially for international students. So how do you get an edge over everyone out there? I'll show you the exact steps. And then finally, if you're open to a more diversified career portfolio, I'll show you ways to consider opportunities both domestically and abroad. And with that being said, exactly like Audra mentioned, let's talk about how to make the most of this session. So the first thing is, I'm going to be throwing pop quizzes at you throughout the course of the session. Please don't hold back. Don't do that typical webinar thing of, okay, I'm on Zoom, I better turn off my brain now. Instead, lean in, answer those questions right in the chat as soon as you see them. Number two, I'm going to give you a chance to go way beyond answering questions to actually get your hands dirty with LinkedIn. So if you want to demonstrate some of these features with me, including getting a free profile makeover, all you've got to do is raise your hand on Zoom, and the first person to do that will win that opportunity. And then finally, if you've got a question, please don't feel like you have to sit on it for the whole session and wait till the end. Instead, ask it at any point, either in the Q&A section or by raising your hand on Zoom. And I'm happy to chat about that in real time. So with that said, let's dive into the first step, which is really understanding the US hiring process. So question for you, if you were thinking about who on average tends to get hired in America, which of these three candidates would you say is most likely? Is it candidate A, who understands how to ace tests, who's great at the SAT or the GMAT or getting a good grades in school? Is it candidate B, who understands how to do the job really well, has built up all the important skills and all the important experiences? Or is it candidate C, who understands how other people think, how recruiters and hiring managers and everyone involved in the process are analyzing their application and analyzing their candidacy? And I see a lot of great answers. Madhu started us off with B, Jane said C, Monica and Annie both said B, Francisco and Leah both said C, Ravant and Anne said B, and then Annie and Chinwen said C. So a lot of different opinions. And here's what I'm going to say. I will tell you the honest truth is that in America, from everything I've seen as both a job seeker and a recruiter and a hiring manager, is that at the end of the day, it's not just the people who are good at school or even good at the job who are getting the jobs, but it's the people who are good at the hiring process, who understand how that process works. And so the first myth that I really want to shatter is that we Americans often like to say, America is the world's largest meritocracy. Here's the country of dreams where anything is possible if you just work hard and are really good at something. And while that might be a nice thing to put on a postcard, I think the truth in my experience is that because the American hiring process is so dependent on humans, recruiters, hiring managers, everyone involved in the process, that ultimately it comes down to human nature, and it comes down to relationships, and it comes down to personalities. And so I know there are lots of places in the world where having the right test score or the right experience will get you hired. But in my experience in the US, that isn't always true. Instead, it's the people who really understand how recruiters think, how hiring managers think. And if you can also understand those key insights, you can be successful as well. And I say that not to be discouraging or even to tear down, US's sort of carefully cultivated image, but just to be real and honest with you, because I want you to be successful and I want you to know exactly how to get what you want. And the best way to get what you want in the American hiring process is to understand what the recruiter wants, because they're the human on the other side of the screen. And there are three things in my experience that every recruiter is trying to find when they look for applicants. Number one, they've got to have candidates who are obvious. You can't be unclear in your focus. You can't be all over the place in terms of your interests. You've got to be lasered in. You've got to be really clear that you are the obvious product manager or data analyst or consultant that I'm looking for. And then I have to see that you're really eager and that you're leaning in. You can't sit back and just hope for the best. You've got to demonstrate, hey, I'm in the game and I'm a serious candidate. And then third and finally, I want candidates who are validated. I don't want to take a chance on a stranger or an unknown entity. Instead, I want someone who's been validated by someone I know and trust. And if you can get that kind of validation, you're going to be golden in this process. And so, to really explore what those three things all mean for you, let's go into the second step, which is once you understand how the hiring process works, how do you make sure you can even get hired in the first place? AKA, where can you get sponsored? So question for you, which of these three firms has already sponsored the most product managers this year? Do you think the answer is Amazon, Google, or Facebook? So let me know in the chat what you think. And Ravant says B. And let's see what else folks have to say. Laura says B, Joy says B, Anne says B. A lot of Google fans here. Jane says C. Facebook's certainly been in the news quite a bit recently. Alex says A, Monica says B, Leah says B, Jinru says B, Ha says A, Dennis says C. So I would say mostly B's with a smattering of A's and C's. And it turns out the answer is A, Amazon. And I know there are a lot of sites for this where you can look up how many H-1B visas have been granted. And I know that you have InnerStrive and there are other sites like myvisajobs.com, but you can see clearly here that Amazon is leading the pack when it comes to sponsorship. And so that's a great place to begin your search. If you know exactly what you want to get yourself into, whether it's product management or finance or consulting or something else, go with the data. But then I don't want you to stop there. I want you to say, hey, how can I also use LinkedIn to not just figure out which companies sponsor in general, but specifically which companies are sponsoring students like myself? So here's what I would love. I would love someone who's feeling really brave and really excited to go ahead and say, Jeremy, I would love to find really unique sponsorship opportunities based on my school, either where I'm going to school right now, or even where I went for undergraduate. And the way you can volunteer is just by raising your hand. Just put your hand right up on Zoom, and whoever is first will have a chance to demonstrate how this works. So Ravant, thank you for being our first volunteer today. I just allowed you to turn on your microphone, and just let me know when you're on. Hey, Ravant.
Hi, Jeremy. Nice to meet you.
Likewise, how are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Doing awesome. And Ravant, before we even dive in, I've got to ask all your classmates across Bentley to send you a lot of love in the chat for being our brave first volunteer. Thank you so much for doing that.
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, of course, of course. And tell me a little bit about yourself. What kind of degree are you getting at Bentley? What are you excited about career-wise?
Sure. So I'm pursuing the MS in Human Factors and Information Design. So basically, for people who are not aware about it, it's user experience design or designing in the world of tech. That's a gross simplification, but yeah, just to make it easy for people to understand what I'm doing. And I'm interested in the world of tech and specifically enterprise tech.
Cool.
Yep.
I love that. I have to say, as someone who's sitting here in Silicon Valley today, we cannot hire UX designers and UX researchers fast enough. Like there is so much hunger for your skill set. So you are absolutely in the right space, studying the right thing. Tell me this, Ravant, where did you go for undergraduate?
My undergrad was in India. And after that, I worked as a developer for a brief period and then pivoted to a role of UX design.
Cool.
Yep, I've done UX design for 3 years, and then I'm starting my program here at Bentley this fall. So it's
I love that.
Year.
And then out of curiosity, where did you go to school in India? What was the name?
It was a university called SJCE in the southern part of India.
Cool.
It's in Mysore, a city next to Bangalore.
Awesome, I love that. And so the reason I ask about that is one of the things that's really fascinating about LinkedIn is LinkedIn at this stage here in 2021 has data on pretty much every professional in the world. And so one thing you may not have considered is that there are students from your undergraduate alma mater who have also come to the US and also gotten sponsorship. And their digital footsteps, if you will, could actually be a trail for you to follow. So what do you say that we explore that together? How does that sound?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool, so let's do this. So we're gonna come over to LinkedIn and we're gonna do a search on LinkedIn. We're gonna say, let us look for people in particular who have gone to a certain school. So in this case, let me look up your undergraduate university. And the amazing thing is that you may think, oh, LinkedIn's a US-based company, so it's mostly focused on US schools. Well, when I worked on the education team there, we tried to make sure we covered as many schools as possible. So let me see if I can just pull this up. Is this your school right here?
No. I'm gonna
okay.
type out the name.
Yeah, if you could put it in the chat, that would be even better. That's great.
I'm doing that.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, my typing skills, especially in front of other people, are very, very impaired. So I love that helpful there. So let me grab that. Okay, wonderful. I'm gonna paste that in. And now, 1 second here. Is this your school?
Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. And I see that there's actually a couple. Let me just go with this one real quick here. Okay, so there's this school, and then I'm going to give myself a couple of other options. Are there a couple of branches based on where you went to school, like a couple of different locations?
No,
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 okay.
just the one. But I think for some reason there are two entries.
Yeah. LinkedIn does have this problem, which is sometimes it considers like a graduate school or a certain
Got
department separate. But anyway, 12,000 alumni, which is no small number, right?
it.
And then what you can say is, show me all those alumni who are no longer in India, but are actually in the US. So we come over here to locations, we put in United States, and then we determine that you actually have 1,300 peers who've gone before you and moved on to jobs at Google, GoDaddy, Yahoo, Zscaler, basically all these hot companies across Silicon Valley, right?
Oh, wow, that's amazing. I did not know we could do this.
Yeah. And so what you can do, and by the way, I'll include this link in the chat so people can get a sense of what it looks like.
Uh-huh.
You can then come over here to current company, and this will actually automatically sort based on the most popular firms for alumni of your school in the US. And so you can see immediately that Amazon, AWS, Intel, TCS, Microsoft, all are huge sponsors of students specifically from your university. And of
Awesome.
course, if you wanted to get a chance at really getting your foot in the door, say at Google, what could you do, Ravant, with some of these alumni? Beyond just applying for a job at Google as a stranger, what would give you an even bigger advantage?
I think it would be, getting a referral from, these alumni.
Exactly. And so you could do that right from the screen, right? You could reach out to Ramachandran and say, hey, you and I attended the same university, and now we find ourselves on the other side of the world together. Is there any way I could learn from your experience? And we'll talk more about that in a couple of sections. But for now, just know you have this incredible directory to search through, and you can use that to guide your own decisions. How does that feel?
Amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And what you could also do is you could do the same kind of search for Bentley, right? You could say, let me go over to the Bentley alumni page. So here's Bentley University. This is actually the product that I worked on when I was at LinkedIn. So I'm going to give you a link to this because it's very powerful. And say, of all these Bentley alumni, who hails from India? So I'll just sort of search with that as a general keyword. And then we find all these students who've come from India, but who are now working in the US at all these great companies. And so they're at Deloitte, they're at Ernst & Young, at Wayfair, at Athena Health. And these could also be alumni that you reach out to based on the fact that you share not only an alma mater, but also an origin. And so they know what it's like to try to get sponsorship in the US. Does that feel doable?
Yeah, it does.
Okay, wonderful. So the bottom line is you already know the really sort of big ways to look for sponsorship using these sort of overall H-1B sites. But if you want to get really personalized recommendations for your undergraduate university, for your graduate alma mater, then you can absolutely leverage all of that. So Ravant, thank you for being an amazing volunteer today. You rocked it.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Cool. And I would love to take any questions that folks have. So again, you can put them right in the Q&A section. I will do my best to also grab them out of the chat. I do want to speak to a couple of questions that had arisen. So first of all, Madhu is absolutely right. Connecting with a personalized note is so much better than connecting with just, hey, let's be in touch. So if I want to reach out to any of these people, so Soumya, for instance, or Devika, and Devika might actually be a really good person for Ravant because she's in the design space, in the UX space, I would definitely want to connect with a personalized message. Or maybe better yet, I noticed that Audra has a shared connection, and maybe Audra can introduce me, and that connective tissue then is even more powerful. Great call out, Madhu. And Laura says, you bring great experience, Rev. 12,000 alumni narrowed down to 1,200. That's the name of the game, Laura, which is LinkedIn can feel really overwhelming at first. There are 700 million professionals, but if you can find just the Bentley alumni or just the alumni of your undergraduate alma mater, now you're in such a really focused space where you can really hammer in on the things that are most important. Let me speak to a couple other questions here. So Madhu had said, does validation only have to be by other humans, or would certifications be considered as validation? Ooh, I love that. Madhu is on fire today with these questions and these great points. So we're going to talk about the validation piece in a second. And I will tell you that, again, coming back to this idea of human nature being the biggest driver of the American hiring process, I do think that having a relationship with someone on the inside is the single best point of validation you can ever have, but you can absolutely substitute certifications or other ways of demonstrating your capacity, even if you don't have a relationship. Great point. Okay, so let's move on to our next session where we'll really get into all these topics, which is once you know, hey, this is how the process works, this is how to find sponsorship opportunities, but now I want that job at Google or I want that job at Amazon, and I'm competing against 1,000 other candidates. How am I going to stand out? Well,
and Jeremy, just really
yes.
quickly, Leah actually asked a question about sponsorship and asked for you to define what it was. What does getting sponsored mean?
Great question, Leah. Thank you for calling that out, Audra. So sponsorship is basically the idea that an employer has to sort of file a notice with the federal government saying, hey, we are hiring this international student because we were unable to find American talent in this space in particular. And so you need that kind of pre-vetting, if you will, from the employer to have access to those employment opportunities in the US. And I don't know if there's anything else you want to add there, Audra, but essentially it's the kind of foundational thing you need to be in place and to even consider getting a job in America today.
I think you did a great job. Thank you, Jeremy.
Okay, great question, Leah. Thank you for asking that. And also, Audra mentioned in the chat, you have a networking event for graduate students tomorrow focused on how to sort of make sure that you're building that connective tissue. So stay tuned for that. Okay, for now, let's come back to that human piece, which is behind every great company that you want to work for. And again, it could be McKinsey, it could be Liberty Mutual, it could be Google, whatever the company is, there is a recruiter behind the scenes who I promise you right now is on LinkedIn searching for talent. I need a UX designer like Revant. I need a product manager. I need a banker. I need a consultant. Now, when they search on LinkedIn, what do you think they're searching for first and foremost? Are they searching for a degree? So I need someone getting an undergraduate degree in business or an MBA. Or maybe I need someone who went to a specific school like Bentley or someone who went to a neighboring school. Or maybe I need someone who has a specific functional focus. So I need someone who's an analyst or an architect. So of those three things, which do you think is the most important thing that every recruiter on LinkedIn starts their search with? So Jane is saying C, Carol agrees, Annie agrees, Madhu agrees, Monica agrees, Dennis agrees, Anne agrees. Everyone is saying C, and I'm happy to say that everyone is correct. So in a couple of minutes, we're going to go into the LinkedIn recruiter screen so you can see what that looks like. And you will notice the number one thing that every recruiter cares about is not where did you go to school or what did you study, but what can you do for me? Can you actually fill this role the way I need done? And the reason I start with that insight is that I want to come back to that point of, hey, it's not enough just to have a great GPA or to be really good at a job, but instead to really understand how recruiters do their job. And so if we come back to those 3 points of a recruiter looking for candidates who are obvious and focused, who are eager and leaning in, and who are validated and peer referenced, how does that play out in terms of LinkedIn? Well, let's start with that piece of obviousness, which is if I'm on LinkedIn and I'm a recruiter, guess what? I'm not using the free LinkedIn tool that we all use as students. No, I'm using a $10,000 per year per seat tool called LinkedIn Recruiter. And the reason I use this version, even though it's so expensive, is because it gives me access to all the talent in the world, and I can slice and dice to my heart's content. And look at how I search. Right away, I say, I'm not looking for a generic business student or a generic, team leader or great teammate. I'm looking for someone who can do this specific job in this location with these specific skills. And so the number one thing that you have to do on LinkedIn and your resume is make yourself obvious. Do I fit the demands of the recruiter? Because if not, I'm not even on their radar screen. And so what that should tell you is you've got to go way past the generic LinkedIn profile that LinkedIn gives you when you first enroll, which says, hey, I'm just a student at the school. And instead, be really clear about, hey, I may be a student today, but here's where I'm headed next. This is the function, this is the space where I can add value to your company. And to help you make your profile really obvious and really desirable, I would love to give one lucky Bentley student a free profile makeover right now. So all you got to do is be the first person to raise your hand, and I will make sure that your profile is 100% obvious to all of your dream recruiters. I'm so happy that Madhu was actually first this time, because Madhu has been amazing in the chat. So Madhu, I just gave you the chance to turn on your microphone, and I would love to chat with you. Welcome to the session.
Can you hear me all right?
I can hear you great. How are you, Madhu?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for picking me.
Oh, of course. Anytime I see someone really engaged in the chat, asking awesome questions, I always want to chat with them directly. So I'm so glad you raised your hand.
Thank you.
And again, before we dive in, will everyone please send a little Bentley love Madhu's way for putting herself out there? I know it takes a lot of guts, but I really appreciate it. So Madhu, before we even look at your profile together, tell me this. What do you want recruiters to find you for? So as we were looking at on the screen before, recruiters are looking for specific job titles, specific skills. What do you want to be discovered for, Madhu?
So I want to be discovered for all things finance, and specifically private equity, real estate, valuation, alternative investments. These are my areas of focus.
Love it. I can tell that you've already done a lot of sort of internal soul searching in terms of figuring out, what am I excited about? Where do my gifts lead me in terms of the world of careers? So now, imagine that you're a recruiter, Madhu, and you come over to LinkedIn and you do this search and you say, I want to find someone with a focus on private equity and real estate. When we run our search here, what do you happen to notice that all the top results have in common? Kevin, Gregory, Don, what ties their profiles together, Madhu?
Definitely, they're already working at that. Real estate, private equity at different firms.
Yeah,
I
so
can
you're
see
right.
all that in common. Yep.
They are in this space, but actually, here's the interesting thing. LinkedIn's algorithm has no way of knowing that they're in the space. What do you think LinkedIn's algorithm is finding here? What is sort of attractive about their profiles from an algorithmic perspective?
The keyword.
The keyword, exactly. So like, again, the algorithm is stuck inside the black box. It can't go out into the world and know, do Don and Gregory and Kevin actually work in this space? All it knows is they have those exact keywords. And where do they have them, Madhu? Do they have those keywords at the bottom of their profile or somewhere else?
No, at their description.
Exactly. This description at the very top, which is called your headline. And the reason that's so powerful, by the way, is that when the LinkedIn engineers built out the LinkedIn search engine, they realized that savvy Bentley students like Madhu wanted to optimize their profile. And so they could go into their profile and they could put all these keywords into their about section or their experience section. But that might ultimately confuse the algorithm. However, the headline, this little piece of text right at the top, is limited to just 220 characters, shorter even than a tweet. And therefore, it is the most narrow, most authentic signal of who you really are and what you can actually do. And that's why it's weighted most heavily in the algorithm. Does that make sense, Madhu?
Yes, it does. Really powerful advice.
Yeah, and so let's start applying that advice to your profile. Is it okay if I put it on the screen, Madhu?
Please do.
Okay, I will be focused on not criticizing, but giving it some love, making sure that it stands out, okay?
Yep.
Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna pull up Madhu's profile. And
yep, this
there we go. Yeah, LinkedIn never lets me down. So there we go. There's Madhu's profile, and it's looking great already. But there is one big thing based on what we just talked about that I would want you to change immediately, Madhu. What do you think that is?
Should we get private equity real estate in there somewhere?
Exactly. And how are we going to do that, by the way? Because let me ask you this question. Are you in private equity real estate already?
No, I'm not. But can I put the words actively looking for a full-time role / internship in private equity real estate?
Exactly. That is the beautiful solution, which is so many business students are trying to change careers, right? We're trying to break into a new space or go from one space to something different. And so even though we can't say we're in this space today, we can let recruiters know where we're headed tomorrow. aspiring, future, seeking opportunities. And the really nice thing is that the algorithm doesn't care about the modifier, doesn't care about the future or the passionate. It just cares about, do you have the most important keyword, which is your desired job, in your most important section, which is your headline. So that's exactly what you have to do. Okay, Madhu?
Yep.
Okay, so that's number one. But let's come back to our source of truth here, which is obviously recruiters are searching for job titles, but they're also searching for other keywords. Any idea what those keywords are, Madhu? The other ones that you need to have?
For me, I think it would be valuation would be one keyword, and then analyst or something like these, like strategy or projections could be another keyword for my industry.
Absolutely. So basically, a recruiter wants to have some of that validation we were talking about, which is you're not just a general fit, you're a specific fit based on your skills. You can actually walk the talk in terms of these are the things we need you to do. Build valuation models, make forecasts, all of that. So Madhu, how would you like to have a list of the most important skills for your desired role?
I don't know where to find, like I know them, but I don't know how to put them into my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, let's see if anyone knows. I can tell you all that there is somewhere on LinkedIn that every single day recruiters are handing you a list of keywords that are most important. Any guesses where that is?
I just see the endorse, like, so I see people who have who are in those roles, and I see for what skills they're endorsed by other people, and then I try to get those skills.
Oh, I love that, Madhu. That is so thoughtful, which is, hey, we know Kevin is already doing this job. What if we come down to his skill section and see the skills that he has? And again, you were absolutely right? Financial analysis, modeling, that's one way to do it. Let me show you an even better way, which is instead of searching for people, what if we search for jobs? Because here's the interesting thing. It turns out that hiding inside these job descriptions are all of the keywords that the recruiter wants, right? Things like asset types, valuation, security and fraud prevention. That's what they're looking for, right, Madhu?
Yep.
So check this out. I'm going to show you another free tool. And by the way, everything I'm showing you today is 100% free, so you can start using it right away. And this tool is called jobscan.co. And what JobScan will do is it'll basically simulate the LinkedIn algorithm for you, even before you build out your profile. So I'm going to take Madhu's existing keywords straight out of her profile. I'm going to put them in over here. And then I'm going to take these job descriptions and I'm going to paste them in on the other side. Make sense so far, Madhu?
Yep.
So we're basically doing the same thing that the algorithm does or applicant tracking systems do, which is say, for these things that are really exciting, what are the skills that Madhu must nail? So we're going to grab all this good keyword verbiage and we're going to run our scan. Are you ready for your moment of truth here, Madhu?
Wow.
Hey, here we go. Well, have no fear. When I was a former kindergarten teacher looking to get into the tech industry, my match rate was 0. But the beautiful thing about the match rate is that you can always improve it. You can work on it. So look at what it's telling you right now, Madhu. It's saying, here are the keywords from the job description that are the most important because they appear the most times. So real estate, transactions, private equity, process, all that stuff. And then here's how often they appear on your profile. So let me ask you this question, Madhu. Have you ever done anything with real estate or transactions or process and procedures, even if it was in a different context, maybe internships or extracurricularly or academically?
No, so my undergrad and my work experience of 3 years at Deloitte is completely on the accounting, financial accounting side. So this master's is to pivot into core finance industry, but I've only worked with business management, accounting. Yeah. But we can tweak what we did by emphasizing more on these words.
That's exactly right. I was going to say, I only know accounting a very little bit, but my sense is as an accountant, you were probably dealing with transactions and process all the time. Is that fair?
Yeah. Yes. Also, the audit process, we've done it over and over again. So I could include that word in there.
That's absolutely true. And so where in your profile, Madhu, could you include those keywords?
The Deloitte one.
Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
led audit process for one of India's
Mhm.
largest accounting firms, driving 25% reduction in costs for client, managed oversight of more than 1 million transactions, improving process efficiency by 10%, right?
Wow. Yep.
And then in just a
That's
couple of bullet points, you're getting credit for all those keywords that the recruiter is searching for right here on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So definitely make
Very
sure, Madhu,
interesting.
that you have everything that you're excited about from your headline all the way down to your skills fully aligned with the jobs that you want next, not just the jobs you had before, okay?
Yes, definitely.
And Madhu, as a thank you for being such an awesome volunteer, I want to give you a little parting gift, which is this list of keywords, okay?
Oh yeah, sure. Thank you so much.
And that way, whenever you have a little time, and I know there's not much time in a student's busy life these days, but whenever you have a little time, you can work on this homework, which is incorporating those
sure.
into your resume, into your profile, okay?
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being an awesome volunteer, Madhu.
Of course, my pleasure. Thank you.
And
Jeremy,
yes, go for it.
I had a quick question. This is Audra. When it
Audra.
comes to the jobscan.co, we've suggested it to students and alumni in the past for resumes. And there's only one opportunity that you can do that scan. For the LinkedIn profile, is it multiple times? Is it just once?
Yeah, I think it's 2 times a month at last check.
Okay.
But here's what I would advise to make the most of it without again spending even a cent is what you might have noticed me doing was not just scanning Madhu's profile against one job description, but multiple job descriptions. So if Madhu wants to make sure that she's really optimized for the whole industry, not just over-indexed on one job, then definitely choose 5 or 10 job descriptions, put them all into JobScan, and now you'll have confidence that you're covering the entire space and all the most important trends across it. Does that make sense?
Perfect. And one other thing that I have suggested in the past is just using like Wordle.net
Yeah.
or a word cloud. You put
absolutely
3, 4, 5 different job descriptions in, and that's definitely a free way to do it.
Absolutely. And I'll just show you a really quick example here. So if you want a word cloud software, pull this up, and there's a lot of them, Wordle and word clouds, and they basically all do the same thing, which is they take your list of words and they put it into a really easy way to visualize. So you say, let me edit my word list. Let me put in, whatever the words are, and then voila, I've got my word cloud focus on those words. So that's how you do something like Wordle. But however you do it, just figure out what the trends are. Figure out what are the most important keywords, and then make sure you nail them on LinkedIn. And in doing so, you make yourself a really obvious candidate. And also, Audrey, I wanted to speak to a question that came in the Q&A. Someone said, how do you put on a job title if you're not currently doing that job? And I think Madhu really nailed that, which is even if you're not doing the job today, let recruiters know that's where you're headed next. Aspiring accountant, future product manager, passionate about financial management, whatever it might be, that lets recruiters know, hey, you're obvious, you're focused, you're the candidate I want to check out. Great question. So if you have other questions about the profile, let me know in the chat or in the Q&A. And then for now, let me move on to our next piece, which is once you've made yourself obvious, well, how do you go to the next step and make yourself eager? And here's why this matters. So now let's go back to LinkedIn Recruiter, which is our source of truth. And again, our sort of hypothetical recruiter is doing their search. I need a project manager in Chicago with these skills, but I've got a new problem, which is even with all my filters, I've got 43,000 candidates. And the really tough thing about LinkedIn for recruiters is that when you want to reach out to candidates, to Emily or to Channing, you've got to choose who to reach out to based on a really limited number of InMails. And InMails are basically messages on LinkedIn that recruiters and other people have to pay for to send. And so if your average recruiter only has about 30 InMails a month, they have to be really picky about who they send them to. And so to help them find the most engaged candidates, the candidates who are really eager and likely to respond, LinkedIn gives them 3 extra filters at the top of the screen. And these filters help the recruiter determine who is in-mail worthy, who is eager, who should get this message. And so to demonstrate how these filters work, I would love for you to do me a big favor. Come right over to the chat right now. You don't even have to volunteer, and just chat in the name of a job and a company you're excited about. So maybe Google product manager, analyst at Liberty Mutual, brand manager at Procter & Gamble. Whatever it is that you're excited about, put it right into the chat, and I will show you how you could apply these filters so that you really stand out as an eager candidate to the companies that you love. So Ravant said, Apple UX designer, I love that one. Ha said BCG financial analyst. Dennis said data engineer at Amazon. Very cool. Well, let's go with Ha, because BCG is a perennial favorite of business students. So if you want to get a financial role at BCG, how would you do that? Well, let me show you the first thing. If I'm a recruiter at BCG and I have a very limited number of in-mails, I'm not going to waste a single in-mail on someone who's not really serious about looking for jobs. If you love your current job or if you're not interested in new roles, you're of no use to me. So the first thing I'm going to filter for is who's really open. And if you want to make sure that you're coming across as open, let me show you a really quick hack, which is you come into your profile, you go past your picture, past your headline, and over to this open to work section. And right here, you're going to turn on a bat signal to the world of recruiters saying, hey, I want to be found for a financial analyst role. And then I want to be found for roles that are either on-site or remote. I want to be found in Boston or New York. And then here's my timeline. Here's the kind of work I want. And by the way, for the alumni out there, if you're kind of curious, Jeremy, this sounds great, but I don't want my current boss finding out. Well, LinkedIn has your back. Yes, you can share this with everyone on LinkedIn, or you can only share it with recruiters, and specifically only recruiters who are not at your current company. So you don't have to worry about your HR team ratting you out. But basically, please turn this signal on no matter which stage you're at, because having this on means you're going to be filtered in versus filtered out. So that's the first signal. The second signal is all about company connections. And that's the idea that if I'm a recruiter, I'd rather connect with someone who knows someone on the inside who's already plugged into my company versus someone who's a total stranger. Again, human nature, right? And so if you want to make sure that you have lots of connections at all your dream companies, at BCG, at Amazon, at Apple, wherever you want to work, the simplest thing you can do is get credit for the connections you already have. Because here's what I see happen all the time. I meet students with 50 or 100 LinkedIn connections who actually know 500 or 1,000 people out there in the real world. So they're not getting credit for all the people they already know. Well, if you want to close that gap right away, the first thing you can do is come into your LinkedIn and now go to the My Network tab at the very top. I'll put that link right in the chat so you can try it out. And on the My Network tab, I want you to scroll down to this lower left-hand side called Add Personal Contacts. And what you're going to do is you're going to import your address books into LinkedIn. So maybe your Gmail address book or your phone's address book using the LinkedIn app. And LinkedIn's going to say, hey, Ha, you already know all these people because we know that you've been corresponding with them outside of LinkedIn. How about you get credit on LinkedIn itself? And then maybe it turns out that Ha does know a few people from formerly in his life who are now at BCG. And now if I'm the BCG recruiter, Ha is going to be filtered in right here versus filtered out. And then third and finally, engaging with Talent Brand. It sounds kind of fancy, but it's actually really simple, which is all things being equal. If I'm a BCG recruiter, I want to know that you're excited about BCG. And the simplest way for me to see that is to say, are you following me on LinkedIn? And so if Ha wants to demonstrate his interest, you can come right over here to the BCG page, click this little follow button right at the top of the page. And with one click, Ha is going to make sure that he's engaging with a Talent Brand and they're being filtered in right over here versus filtered out. So bottom line, demonstrating how eager you are is not hard, but it does take a little bit of work. And I want you to really spend some time making sure that you're going to be filtered in for new opportunities, for company connections, and for engaging with Talent Brand. So please make sure you take care of those. All right. So all that being said, if you've got questions about any of those topics, feel free to ask me in the Q&A or raise your hand. And if not, I'm going to move on to the third piece, which is recruiters want validated candidates. And the simplest way to understand this is to look at the data. And the data is so clear here. Check this out. What we're looking at is a graph that represents millions of job applicants across America over several years. And what it's showing you is that the vast majority of applicants are applying online for jobs. So they go to career sites or job boards. Okay, that all makes sense. But here's the problem. When you look at who's being hired, those same applicants are being hired at a vastly smaller rate. And yet at the same time, this tiny minority of candidates, just 7%, who are being referred by people on the inside, are getting 40% of all the opportunities, the vast plurality of all the offers, just for people who are being referred. And I think that what I should tell you right off the bat is that if I'm a recruiter, the number one thing I want is not just that you're obvious, not just that you're eager, but that you are a slam dunk, that you are a no-risk candidate because there's someone on the inside who is already vouching for you and telling me how awesome you are. And you might say to yourself, well, Jeremy, that's great for a domestic student, but what about for international students? How do we build those relationships where we can get a referral too, or we can get that advantage? Well, I'm going to show you exactly how to do that step by step right now. And all I need is one final volunteer to raise their hand and say, hey, I'm in, Jeremy. I want to figure out the foolproof process to get a referral at any company in the world. And I see that Xin Wen has raised their hand. And Ravon, thank you for volunteering again. I just want to give Xin Wen a chance. So Xin Wen, if you're still game, I would love to give you a chance to chat. Feel free to turn on your microphone.
Hello,
Hi, Xin Wen.
can you hear me?
I can hear you great. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing well. And did I pronounce your name correctly, Xin Wen?
Yes.
Okay, beautiful. So Xin Wen, I don't want you to go easy on me. I want you to make this really hard. Tell me about a company that you would love to get into, but that one that's really difficult to open up that front door. What's that company for you, Xin Wen?
Goldman Sachs.
Oh, I love that. Oh, so good. You know, sometimes people will say things like, oh, I want to work at, this really big company that hires a lot of people all the time, but Goldman Sachs is a really tough one to crack into. So let's work on it together. How does that sound?
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to come over to LinkedIn, and just like we did for BCG, we're going to search for Goldman. And sure enough, just like every company in the world, Goldman has a LinkedIn page. And one of the really cool things, Xin Wen, that's kind of hiding in plain sight here is that there's this number of employees, which will actually give you access, Xin Wen, to the complete Goldman Sachs employee directory on LinkedIn, including almost 70,000 employees who could potentially refer you into this organization. So I'm going to include that link right in the chat so everyone can see what that looks like. And Xin Wen, if you were going to look through this list of 70,000 employees to find someone to refer you at Goldman, where would you start your search? What would be the lowest hanging fruit?
I'm thinking maybe someone who's currently working at a position that I'm interested in,
Ooh, interesting. So what position is that?
like financial analyst.
Okay, I love it. So you could say, let me look at someone who's specifically on the analyst side. So I come over here to my advanced search options. I put in title equals analyst, and I'm going to go ahead and run my search. And voila, we now have 15,000 people at Goldman who are specifically in the analyst space. Okay, so we're getting a little bit better, but still too many to go through. What's another way we could filter this, Xin Wen, if we want to get down to the people who are really easy to reach out to?
The hiring manager.
Ah, interesting. And how would you find the hiring manager on LinkedIn?
Maybe search first. Like,
Yeah, so I'll show you actually a kind of bonus hack here. Sometimes you will see people on LinkedIn who have the word hiring in their profile. So they might say, I'm hiring at Goldman, or I'm looking to hire on my team. I don't really see anyone in this list who fits that. So maybe that hack won't work in this particular instance. But let me make this even easier, Xin Wen. I have to admit to you, when I was an MBA student, I was very lazy. I didn't want to do anything that took a lot of time or was too hard. If you were to take the laziest approach to finding someone at Goldman Sachs, who would be someone you could reach out to right away?
Social networking.
Yeah, someone you know, right? Someone you're connected with,
Yeah.
who's in your network. And so you could say, show me everyone at Goldman who's a first degree connection. And I can run the search. And sure enough, here's Solen, who's doing the exact job you want and is already connected to me. And if I was to reach out to Solen and ask her for a referral, why would it be in her advantage, Xinwen, to give me a referral? What would she get out of it?
She probably will get bonus, like introducing some new talents, like bonus for her work.
That's exactly right. The world of finance is all about incentives, right? You get a bonus for this and a bonus for that. And this is no difference. As someone who successfully refers a candidate at Goldman Sachs or McKinsey or Google, she will get a bonus of $1,000 or $5,000, depending on how valued that referral is. So there's really a strong win-win there, where you, Xinwen, get a big advantage in the hiring process, but Solen also gets a big advantage financially. So that's the easiest way. But what about this? Xinwen, imagine that you did not know anyone directly at Goldman. What would be the next best thing? Where could you go next?
Actually, I tried that because I really don't have any social networks to Goldman Sachs. So I searched people and Bentley University and Goldman Sachs to see if there's any Bentley alumni.
I love that. And what did you find, by the way?
Not many people. I messaged several on LinkedIn, but I haven't heard back from any of them yet.
Great. Well, let me show you a couple of hacks that can actually help you there. So when you search for school on LinkedIn, I want you to search for two things. I want you to search for both Bentley, the larger university, as well as the School of Business. Because again, LinkedIn has this weird way of sort of keeping track of the universities where they're actually counted as separate. So I want you to get credit for both of them. And then you click show results, and voila, 20 Bentley students, or Bentley alumni in this case, who are all analysts at Goldman Sachs. And so you could reach out to Philip or Ariel or William. But now let me give you an extra little advantage here, Xinwen. Why do you think I might want to reach out to William instead of to Cassandra or to Palak? What is the advantage of William?
Same location, Boston area.
Aha, yes, absolutely. So he's in the exact office you want to be in. What's another advantage, by the way? Something else about him?
Has many people, like he has many connections.
Right, and not just many connections, but many shared connections, right?
Yes.
He knows someone in common. So you can absolutely reach out to William directly, or you could reach out to Nicholas and ask to be introduced. And that way, when William hears about you for the first time, he's not hearing about you as a stranger, but he's hearing about you from a friend, someone he already trusts. And that's going to increase your response rate. But actually, let's do a little practice together here, Xinwen. Imagine you want to reach out to William directly, and you didn't know anyone in common. What could you say to him? What would help you ultimately, get William excited about you? What would you say here, Xinwen?
I would say, I see that you graduated from Bentley. I'm also a Bentley student.
Yeah, I love that. So you're starting with what you have in common, which is always a great way to start, in a very human way. I'm a current student there. And then where do you go next? What's your next sentence?
I saw that you're working at Goldman Sachs, which is the company that I'm interested in.
Yeah. Love it. Okay, so already you have 2 points of connection within the first two sentences, right? You
Right.
share an alma mater, you share a dream employer. Now, how do you go from just a nice little connection to actually a chance to chat with him? What could you ask for, Xinwen?
Maybe say I would like for you to refer me to the firm. I don't know.
Yeah, and this is the tricky part. And this is why I really wanted to get into the details here, is I think if you reach out to someone and they don't know you yet, even if they're a Bentley alum, they're probably not ready to make the referral because you're still kind of a stranger, right?
Right.
So what I would highly recommend doing is have an introductory conversation where you can get to know him, build a little rapport, and then maybe ask for the referral. So how do you feel about this? I'd love to learn from your expertise. Any chance we could chat for even 10 minutes over Zoom? Does that feel doable, Xinwen?
Yeah, that sounds really good.
Yeah, and again, you're keeping it simple, right? You know,
Yep.
William is busy, you know, he has a lot on his plate, but you're making it really easy for him to say yes. I'm going to put your chat right into the messages here because I want all of your classmates to see. It doesn't have to be rocket science. It doesn't have to be a long Shakespearean essay. All it has to be is a simple point of connection and then ask for something simple. So now here's the big question, Xinwen. When you're chatting with William, what are you going to ask him? What are you going to say to him that could potentially lead to you getting a referral?
Like, are there any positions that you know who needs like financial analyst that can suit me?
Yeah, so we'll get there in a moment. That's a great question to have in your back pocket. But for now, let's just think about human nature, right? Before William can really be excited to refer you, he's got to be excited about you personally. And I think the easiest way to do that, Xinwen, is just to ask him really good questions. You can say, William, thanks so much for taking time to chat with me today. As someone who's trying to break into the space, I'd love to learn from your expertise. Could you just tell me how you got into Goldman from Bentley? And I'll tell you his story. I'll tell you the sort of journey that he took. And then after he shared his story with you, then you could say, you know what? Everything you just shared with me was like music to my ears. Like that's the exact path that I want to follow. But I also know that Goldman is hard to get into. If you were in my shoes, William, what would you do to get the best chances of getting an interview? And then William will say, you know what, Xinwen, I was actually hired through a referral from another Bentley alum. And referrals are really important here. And then, only then at that point, could you say, William, would you ever be willing to give me a referral? I know it's a lot to ask, but it would mean so much to me. And I know that I could do a really great job for the financial analyst team at Goldman. And now that you've eased into it, it feels a lot more natural than just, hey, William, I saw that you went to Bentley, give me a referral. How does that feel?
That sounds amazing. Thank you.
Great, great. And I know it's a little bit more work, right? Versus just sending a message and getting an immediate response. But I do think that, again, coming back to the central theme of today's session, if you put yourself in the shoes of the other person, it's all about relationship. It's all about trust. And you've got to build up that trust a little bit before you can ask for something. So Xinwen, thank you for being an amazing volunteer today.
Thank you. I have one more question.
Yeah, please do.
So what you said about before, like, tell me about your story to go to Goldman Sachs. And should we type that with this chat like all together? Or should we just leave it, say, for even 10 minutes over Zoom and see until he responds, and I like tell him more about the story to Goldman Sachs?
Yeah, I do think you probably want to have that conversation live versus over LinkedIn or email. The reason being that I do think that people develop stronger bonds faster when they're actually talking to someone. And it could be over the phone, or it could be Zoom, or it could be a coffee chat. But if you have something live, it really develops a lot more rapport than just a quick sort of text exchange online. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Great question. Oh, I love that. And by the way, Audra's calling out that if you want to see all the documentation on how to have these conversations, go to the Handshake resources section, because your Career Development Center has already put all that content right there for you. So I know it can feel like a lot in terms of how do you find the right alumni? What do you talk about? But the GCD has your back, and it's already in Handshake. Okay, so again, we've talked about these three critical things that every recruiter wants. I want obvious candidates, I want eager candidates, and I want validated candidates. And even though it can feel really complex, it does boil down to just a couple of things. Number one, do you have a clear focus on your profile? Number two, are you engaged on LinkedIn? And number three, are you getting those referrals that give you that validation? And so with that being said, I want to go into our fourth and final step, which is how you can expand your career portfolio even beyond America's shores, if you're interested. So I want to ask you this question, last pop quiz for today. If you think about LinkedIn profiles versus traditional resumes or CVs, which of these is worse about LinkedIn? Is it that you can't customize it for different roles? Is it that it's limited to a certain amount of content? Or is it that LinkedIn profiles only get searched occasionally? So come over to the chat right now and give me your best guess. A, B, or C, which of these things is worse about LinkedIn profiles? What's your best guess? So Shinwen says C, only gets searched occasionally. Let's see what others say. I'd love to hear from Ravanth and Alex and Anne and Annie and Barbara and Brian. Give me your best guess in the chat. Dennis says C, Ravanth says A, Madhu says A, Brian says A, Joyce says A. Okay, I see a definite trend here. Ha says A. So it's all about not being able to customize. And you're absolutely right. You know, the one thing that drives me crazy about LinkedIn is we all know that a really great resume is a customized resume. You don't apply for a product manager job with the same resume that you use to apply to an investment banker job. It's got to be focused. It's got to be obvious for all the reasons we talked about. And the problem is, unlike a resume, which you can change as many times as you want, most LinkedIn users are stuck with just a single profile. But if you are feeling stuck, especially when it comes to putting all of your career eggs in just one basket, I would suggest one option to consider is diversifying your career portfolio. And let me explain why. So a lot of people on LinkedIn will do what Raphael does here, which is they will have, you know, this massive profile that's trying to cover all possible bases. So what I really want to do is I want to be a product manager and I want to do business development. And oh, by the way, I also want to start my own company. And to a recruiter, that's so painful because again, I want focus, I want obviousness. And yet you who speak more than one language actually have a superpower on LinkedIn that no one else does, which is you can have multiple profiles. Let me show you how this works. So if you speak Chinese, if you speak Portuguese, if you speak French or Spanish, what you can do if you're interested in applying broadly is come into LinkedIn, come into your profile and say, hey, I want to add a profile in another language. So for example, maybe I'm applying for jobs back in Rio, my hometown, and I want to apply in Portuguese. Well, what I can do is I can create a whole separate profile just in that language. And here's the beautiful thing. That Portuguese profile can be 100% different than my English American profile. So maybe I'm looking for tech jobs in America and consulting jobs in Rio. I can have a different headline, a different focus, different keywords. Everything can be different. And the beautiful thing is LinkedIn will serve up that profile based on where the recruiter is coming from and what language they use. So all the recruiters in Rio will see your Portuguese version and all the recruiters in Boston will see your English version. So just a cool little bonus hack for international students who speak more than one language. Okay, with that said, I want to sort of finish up with a quick reminder of what we've covered today. And I would also love to answer any questions that are on your mind. So if you've got questions about, should I buy LinkedIn Premium? Or do I need endorsements on my profile? Or how do I network with Bentley alumni? Anything you're curious about, this is your chance to ask. And the really exciting thing is, because I no longer work at LinkedIn, I don't have to give you the company line. I don't have to say, oh, it all matters. I will give you the honest truth. Here's what matters and here's what doesn't. So feel free to ask your questions right in the Q&A or just raise your hand right on Zoom. Either way, I'll take your questions in a moment. But for now, quick reminder, success in the American hiring process starts with understanding how the process works. And I wish I could tell you that it's a pure meritocracy and it's all about test scores and your competence. But the sad truth of the American hiring process is it does come back to the people who are involved, the recruiters and their mindset and how they see you. And so that means that if you really want to stand out in the process, you've got to focus on what they care about, which are things like, are you obvious? Do you have a focused profile? Are you an eager candidate? Are you following their companies on LinkedIn? Are you open to opportunities? And then finally, are you validated? Do you have that good housekeeping seal of approval that says, hey, I'm not a stranger, I'm a friend of a friend, and someone in your company is vouching for me. And then of course, take advantage of all these other opportunities to discover sponsorship and opportunities in your home country through the power of LinkedIn and second profiles. Okay, a couple other bonus goodies to get you started. So first of all, with Audra and the amazing team at Bentley, you already have the world's best career team at your disposal. But if you ever want your own career Sherpa by your side, focused on LinkedIn, you can always feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And I would love to stay in touch with any Bentley students on the line. Even if you have a question tomorrow or a year from now, feel free to send me a personalized note and I would love to stay in touch. And then most importantly, as a thank you to Audra and Janet and the whole Bentley career team, there is unique access to the only LinkedIn course built by former LinkedIn insiders. It's $100 for students at other schools, but it's free just for Bentley students using the link that I've shared in the chat. And by the way, that's a lifetime link. So even as a Bentley alum, you will still have access to this course, which is always updated with all of LinkedIn's new features. So having shared all of that, let's take some of these questions. So Revanth is asking, how do you break the ice and ask someone on LinkedIn who doesn't know you personally to refer you? And I think we've spoken about that a little bit in Shinwen's example, Revanth, but I really do think it comes back to human nature, which is the #1 topic of conversation that everyone loves is of course themselves. And so if you can give an alum a chance to share their story, to give advice, to basically pay it forward a little bit to you, the next generation of Bentley students, that's a really powerful beginning to any conversation. And then once you've broken the ice, then you can make that ask, whether it's for a referral or for something else. Great question. Okay, Revanth says, how important are endorsements and especially recommendations? Well, Revanth, I've got to ask you a question in turn. So if you don't mind turning on your mic one more time. Revanth, when we were looking at this LinkedIn screen together, did you see anywhere on the screen that recruiters could filter for endorsements?
I think I did not.
Yeah, so you can definitely filter for skills like we talked about, but not for endorsements. Any idea why that might be, Revanth?
These endorsements are not, like there's no verification. You can just ask a friend to endorse you.
That's exactly right. It comes back to that idea of validation, right? It's funny. I was working at LinkedIn when endorsements first came out, and they totally went viral. People were endorsing everyone. My own mother endorsed me for both astronomy and zoology, 2 things I know nothing about. And that same mom problem has kind of haunted them ever since, which is there's no validity. There's no clear sort of credibility to how strong a signal these are. However, Revanth, here's the powerful thing about recommendations. So yeah, endorsements might be a little bit shady, but recommendations tell you this is the exact person who's giving the recommendation. And so a recruiter can see that and say, aha, this is someone who's in the space, who's working at a really respected company. I trust that person's judgment over a random endorsement, excuse me. And so what I think does matter, Revanth, is not getting 1 million recommendations or 1 million endorsements, but 1 or 2 really high quality recommendations from a boss or a client who can really speak to the things that make you special. And if you have that, then you have that validation we were talking about. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you so much.
Awesome question. Let's see here. Someone says, how to put in several job titles that I'm currently working for. So as I was indicating before, it can be a little bit dangerous on LinkedIn to be like our friend Raphael here, where you have all these job titles that have nothing to do with each other. Because as a recruiter, when I see this, all these red flags go off in my mind. Can I trust this guy? Is he really focused? Is he actually good at any of these jobs? Versus if you have maybe 1 or 2 jobs that you're really excited about, and maybe they go together. So for example, maybe you want to be a financial analyst or a marketing analyst. I totally buy the idea that one candidate could be good at both of those jobs, because the same skills that are going to make you good at financial analysis are also going to make you good at marketing analysis. Being good with Excel, good with data, good with pivot tables, maybe good with Tableau or SQL. And so if you have a couple of different roles and they all make sense together, feel free to list those. But if you have 5 different roles that are all over the place, do a little more homework. Talk to some more Bentley alumni and find the 2 or 3 that are a really good fit for you. Great question. Renato says, if I'm an undergraduate student and I'm looking to do my first internship in the summer of 2022, should I add relevant projects such as courses I've taken in Bentley? I have not done any internships before. So Renato, I would love to chat live with you. If you'd love to like to turn on your mic. I'm curious, Renato, what kind of internship do you want to get and what courses have you taken?
Hi, Jeremy, how are you?
I'm doing great. Hi, Renato.
So I'm looking for my first internship in next summer 2022. Um, I've I would like to do this internship in investment banking in New York. Especially I was looking for Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
I'm right now, my major is quantitative economics and minor in finance.
Cool.
So yeah, and because of COVID, I couldn't do any internship before. And yeah, that's pretty much everything. So I
Yeah.
was hoping to I don't know, to upgrade my LinkedIn profile in order to get this internship.
Yeah, absolutely. And what are the names of some of the courses you've taken?
So I have taken like 3 courses of finance and 2 of economics.
Yeah.
Right now I'm enrolled in econometrics, introduction to econometrics, and I've taken I don't remember right now my courses
Okay.
of finance.
Probably things like, corporate finance, financial modeling, financial
Yeah,
valuation, stuff like
financial
that,
modeling
right?
and corporate finance. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a feeling. So here's the beautiful thing. If you were to go to the Goldman Sachs job description for the iBanking role, I guarantee you it would have all of those same keywords, right? Financial modeling, financial valuation, corporate finance. And so guess what? The names of those courses are actually the same keywords you need. And so if you go to your LinkedIn and you actually go to your education section and list out of those courses, LinkedIn's algorithm will see them when recruiters do their search. So please, please, please make sure you take every piece of content you have access to, courses, extracurriculars, any kind of side projects you've done, and bring that into LinkedIn, because all of that content works for you when the algorithm searches, okay?
Perfect, thank you.
Great question. And that's really the most important thing for every student to understand, is that even as a student, even as someone who's trying to break into a new space, you already have all these assets in terms of what you've learned and the skills you've built, but you're only going to get credit if they're actually on your resume or on your LinkedIn profile. Okay, thanks, Renato.
Thank you.
So then, good question from Madhu. Madhu says, Laura, and I gotta give a big shout out to Laura Aiken here. Laura taught me that if someone doesn't respond, like a Bentley alum, we should follow up once a week. What do we say to follow up without being mean? Well, let me show you 2 bonus hacks here, Madhu. So the first one is I highly recommend trying to find an alum's actual email address if possible, because that's going to give you the best chance of getting a response. The sad reality of LinkedIn is that there are lots of people who will never see your messages on LinkedIn for a variety of reasons. Maybe it's connected to their Gmail account and Gmail is sending all the LinkedIn messages to spam. Maybe they signed up for LinkedIn with an old work email and they no longer have access to it. So all your messages are lost in cyberspace. And so if you want to have a much more guaranteed way of getting through, you want to find the alumni email address, the work email they're checking 10 or 20 times a day. And maybe you can find that through the Bentley alumni directory. But if not, there's another tool, which is also free, called hunter.io. So you could look up Goldman Sachs, for instance, gs.com, and say, what's the domain for Goldman Sachs? And most importantly, what's the email format? And now I can guess the email address for pretty much any Goldman alum just based on first name, last name at gs.com. And so that gives me a much better chance of getting an initial response. That's the first thing, Madhu. Number 2, however, is that follow-up is so critical, exactly like Laura said. And so if you know that, like me, maybe you have a hard time always remembering what to do, let technology help you out. And here's another free tool. It's called followupthen.com. So whenever I'm reaching out to an alum, and I know that follow-up is so critical, I always make sure to BCC 1 week at followupthen.com. And then magically, every single week, that original email will come back to my inbox, reminding me, hey, Jeremy, make sure to send your weekly follow-up. So that'll just make sure that your brain has one less thing to worry about so you can focus on the things that are actually important. And then in terms of how you follow up, Madhu, you're right. You definitely want to be respectful. You don't want to be like, hey, I didn't hear back from you. Don't you love me? That's not going to work. Instead, you could say, hi, Renato. I just wanted to follow up on my message from last week. As mentioned, I would love to learn from your experience. I know you must be incredibly busy right now, but even a few minutes of your time would make a tremendous difference in my career. And that way you're doing it in a gentle way that reminds the alum of the value they can provide. Because sometimes alumni get busy, we get distracted. But when we see that there's a student out there who could really benefit from our expertise and they bother to follow up, that's a winning combination. So that's the way you want to do it. Okay, Madhu? All right.
Yep, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure, Madhu. And thank you for being an amazing volunteer today. Okay, let me bring it back to Audra at this point. Audra, did I miss any questions maybe in the chat?
Yes, Jeremy, I think you've done a great job with all the questions, engaging with the students. Thank you so much. There is one question from Francisco Cunha. He says, my name is Francisco and I have a question. My high school has a LinkedIn, but it's not letting me put it in my bio. What can I do?
Great question, Francisco. I think what he's getting at, Audra, is that maybe LinkedIn is not sort of auto-completing it on his profile.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, let's say you want to add an education. I'll just put in my high school as an example. And so my school is showing up, but I suspect that actually, even if your school doesn't show up for any reason, that's totally okay. All you want to do is you want to make sure to just type in the name as you remember it, and then go ahead and click save, and it'll be on your profile. And so you might not have the nice little logo, which is unfortunate, but you will have the goodness of all those keywords. So for example, if Francisco did some great student volunteer stuff in high school as a leader or a project manager, now those keywords will be on his profile where the algorithm can find them. Okay. Audra, any final words of wisdom? Anything else you want to call out as far as upcoming events or things that students should be thinking about?
Well, I think the one question I think you had actually posed about LinkedIn Premium, I was kind of hoping we get that question often, and no one asked it today, but I'm asking you now. Can you shed light on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm
Why
so glad
not?
you asked.
Yeah.
Because it is pretty expensive. You know, it's $50 or $100 a month, depending on which version you get. And I totally understand the inclination because LinkedIn is sneaky with its marketing and it says, hey, you've got to buy LinkedIn Premium to be successful. But here's the reality. The most important things in the hiring process are the things we covered today, which are finding sponsorship opportunities, building a great profile, networking with Bentley alumni. And those things don't cost a cent. Those are all absolutely free. And even the one piece that might seem useful, which is buying InMails, isn't the most effective way to go. Because think about the problems with InMails that we talked about. Even if you bought 5 InMails or 10 InMails from LinkedIn, you could send those InMails out and never get a response from a Bentley alum because maybe they never saw your message. Whereas you could go to a tool like Hunter or the Bentley Alumni Directory, find their actual email address, and get in touch at a much higher response rate, all without paying LinkedIn a cent. So here's my advice, Audra. I encourage every student to save those $50 or $100 a month and instead take you and your team out for a nice dinner after you help them land an awesome job.
I think that's a great idea. And we'd invite you too, Jeremy. Join us.
I would love that. And yeah, just like I said before, I'll end on this note, which is, you know, right now, things can feel very topsy-turvy in terms of the world and the pandemic and everything going on. But I want your students to know, you've probably been reading these stories about the Great Resignation, which is this idea that sort of post-pandemic, people are quitting jobs, trying to find new careers with more meaning. And what that means for you as a student is that every time someone walks off the job in the US, that's opening the door a crack for you. And with this amazing team that you have at Bentley, with all these tools you have on LinkedIn, you have all this power at your fingertips to bust down those doors and go get those opportunities, especially right now. So I just want to wish you all tremendous success on the adventure ahead.
So on that note, Jeremy, wow, that was the quickest hour and almost a half that I've been to a session in a while. I think it's because the presenter, you, were so engaging. At the same time, the content I definitely think was useful. And my hope is that all of our students and our alumni online today got at least one golden nugget, if not many. I know for me, every time I am at one of your sessions, there's so much to learn. And I really do appreciate your your passion for this, for LinkedIn. So thank you so much. And again, for really getting to know each and every one of us, mentioning us by name, it brought us closer together to you. So I really do appreciate that. I did want to mention, as Jeremy was saying, we do have an event for graduate students. I know there's lots of events for undergraduate students. I encourage you to look on Career Edge as well as Handshake. But tomorrow, graduate students, we have our largest networking event. So I think this session was the perfect prelude to Career Conversations, which is what our event is called. That's on November 3rd, again, tomorrow, Wednesday, from 3 to 5 p.m. If you haven't signed up already, I encourage you to do so. And like Jeremy, using the chat, yeah, the sign up link is right there. And we encourage you to participate, meet up to 35, almost 40 alumni professionals. We did all the work for you. So it's your opportunity to engage with them and build those relationships, connect with them on LinkedIn as well. So on that note, if no one has any other questions, and Jeremy, do you have any final words of wisdom?
Yeah, I was going to say, I want you guys to go out there to be super successful, and no matter where you go Falcons.
Yeah, go Falcons. Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Actually, there is one more question. Hi, Jeremy.
I see. I'm currently working in several positions at Bentley. Can you show us how to put them all in the experience section? Absolutely. So check this out. One of the really powerful things about LinkedIn is, unlike a resume, you're not always worried about how do I fit this into 8.5 by 11 inches. So as soon as you have a new job, even a part-time job at Bentley, you come right to your experience section, you click the plus icon, and you just start to fill out, I'm doing an internship with the career team or whatever it is, get credit for it. And again, don't just say, hey, here's the job title. Give me all those keywords. Write down in the description, every bullet point, every key skill, everything that you're delivering. I want to see that as a recruiter, and I'm hungry for that as the algorithm. So please, please, please feed the LinkedIn machine, and it will pay you back in turn.
And on that note, thank you for that last question. Jeremy did invite you to engage with him on LinkedIn. So if you have more questions, feel free to reach out to him. I do want to remind everybody that this session is recorded, and we'll make it available to all of you to review at a later date. So again, on that note, I do want to say thank you to Jeremy. I know it's in California. What time is it over there? Is it about lunchtime?
It's still only lunchtime, so the whole day is ahead.
Still only lunchtime, and we're getting ready for dinner. So on that note, enjoy your lunch. We'll enjoy our dinner. Have a great night, Bentley students and alumni.
Good luck, everyone.
Thank
Cheers.
you. Bye, Jeremy. Thank you, everyone. Show them the love in the chat. Thank you so much. Loved having you here. We love our international students. If you need any help, feel free to connect with us at PCDC, the Pulse for Career Development Center. See some of you at Career Conversations tomorrow.
Hi, Audra. Thank you so much.
Bye, Madhu. You're the best. Great volunteer. Appreciate all of the people who volunteered today. Bye. Laura, are you still here? Thank you. Have a good day. Have a good evening.